Are games meant to be completed? What does it mean to complete a game? Well, that's kind of hard to answer, isn't it? It can mean a ton of different things to a wide variety of people. If someone says they completed or finished the recent Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, you can't really know what they meant without further clarification. Did they get all the goals in both games? Did they get all the goals in both games with multiple or even all the skaters? Did they get every challenge in the main 3 challenge categories? Did they get all the achievements? You might think this is an unnecessary point, because you could just ask them specifically what all they did. That's not important. I want to focus on what completing a game means to each of us as individuals. Let me be very clear right off the bat here. All of this is arbitrary. You might have a connotation that completing a game is synonymous with doing literally every piece of content in the game, but that's a subjective assessment. If you're a trophy or achievement hunter, you can get all of them in a handful of games without doing every single challenge in the game. In Marvel Spider-Man, you don't have to do all the bonus objectives in each warehouse fight to get the Platinum Trophy. And in the Spyro remakes, you can get the Platinum Trophies without finishing all the skill point challenges. I just Platinumed Spyro 2 recently. Here's my Platinum Trophy, signifying that I've done every other trophy in the game. Yet here's unchecked boxes for challenges that I haven't done. But I still got my Platinum and the file select screen percentage is at 120%. Did I complete or finish the game? Did someone who did everything I did, and also checked those boxes, complete the game more than me? I think the answer to that question is an emphatic yes. The point of that little anecdote was to show that there's a gradient when comparing what we all view as completing a game. If we think back to all the examples of a way a person can complete the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, I feel comfortable saying they all completed the game. The only difference is to what degree they literally accomplished every single task possible in the game. Some of you might have a problem with me saying that someone who simply got all the goals, which takes like 6 hours, completed the game, when getting every trophy in the game could take 50 to 60 hours. How could I say that both of these people are completing the game, even if I do admit there is a gradient when talking about completion? I don't blame you, it's something I just recently came around on. To hopefully alleviate those concerns, we're gonna have to get boring, if I wasn't already. Let's crack open a digital dictionary. Merriam-Webster defines the word complete to bring to an end, and especially into a perfected state. I think the disagreement might lie in the importance one puts on the part and especially into a perfected state. To me, that emphasizes the gradient I was talking about earlier. It places the people who did more content higher in completion than the people who did less. But to you, getting to a perfected state might be the deal breaker. Completion would require someone to finish every task that the developer programmed into the game. And that's a fine perspective to have, but you can't hold others to your own perspective. The most important part of the definition that I read earlier is to bring to an end. A game can be brought to an end while still excluding optional content. Now that I've established the finish line of completion is at different places for different people, what does completing a game mean to me? I've always been fascinated with the concept of playing past the end credits in a game. I love engaging with optional content that's meant to push the player to the absolute limits of the game's mechanics. Look at the Mario games, they're almost always balanced so that pretty much anyone can get to the end credits, which makes sense considering how wide of a demographic they appeal to. But after the credits roll, you're given access to much harder levels that test your mastery of Mario's movement. The developers are able to implement challenges that have no place in the main story's difficulty progression. I'm also a sucker for checking items off a list. I feel like a dumb caveman for admitting that I'm easily manipulated by such a simple thing, but it's the honest truth. I'll go back to Mario. It's so satisfying having all these moons checked off in Super Mario Odyssey. I guess beyond the simple satisfaction of having every moon name in the list, it's representative that I finished every single task in this area, that I had the dedication to even do it in the first place. With Mario Odyssey, there weren't a whole lot of hard moons, but there are a few that really pissed me off. Hell, there are some I've told myself I'll never get, just on principle. I am never gonna get the moons for 100 jump rope jumps or volleyball volleys. It's such a difficulty spike from everything else in the game, and more importantly, it's mechanically different from the traditional gameplay in the game, so I just don't care about them. I don't attempt to fully complete every game. I'll generally only go for ones that have satisfying movement or gameplay. I'm not really attracted to replaying games based on plot like Until Dawn, because they're mechanically the same the second time around. Sure, the story is good and interesting and it branches off at points that you could see on a second playthrough, but the gameplay is what keeps me playing something after the credits. As for how thoroughly I'll complete a game, depends. I think I've shown that I'll ignore challenges if they're straight up not fun. I'm not into the idea of doing something that isn't fun just so my percentage will be at 100% instead of 99%. It also depends on how the game presents its challenges. If a game presents collectibles like how the Spyro remake presents their gems, with a tiny little counter at the top of the level select screen, you're gonna feel compelled to get all those gems. I'm sure there's one little fella you'd expect me to talk about. Well, he's supposed to be here. I told him to show up right about now. I don't see. Oh!
Ooh, wow, that was intense! Woo! I just flew in from the new ruins level, and boy, are my arms tired!
This guy, this marsupial, this Bandicoot, I've been obsessed with him over the past few months. The original N-Sane trilogy were perfectly crafted to draw out that desire for completion. They're a Schedule 1 drug for people like me. Easy to understand, hard to master movement, generally fair challenges, and tallies off all the collectibles in the game on the pause screen. Every time I pause the game to check my phone or mess with settings, I'm confronted with how many time relics or gems I don't have. This is weaponized content. Now I'll be honest, I didn't do everything in these games. Crash 1 I didn't even attempt 100%, because I wasn't a big fan of the simplistic movement compared to Crash 2 and 3. Crash 3 I did 100% complete though, because it was the one I enjoyed the most out of the trilogy. Also, it required me to do all the optional stuff I skipped in 1 and 2 to get the true ending, so there's that. Man, I love these games. It's kind of crazy how Naughty Dog really hit it out of the park with these games back in the 90s, and how Vicarious Visions did a pretty good job of remaking these games while maintaining the fun factor. I wonder if there's any other games that are in a similar position that came out around the same time. Random tangent here, but I'm also in the mood for a racing game.
Fasten your seatbelts for a Beanox recreation!
That's right. CTR. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. 4-word review. Mario Kart, but better. I could do a whole video on why I love CTR, but I'll keep it brief here. Crash Team Racing was a fantastic diversion from the gameplay of the original trilogy. I feel like it's a game you wouldn't expect to be good. It's a joke that when a series is getting milked, one of the genres you'll see them reach for is a racing game. My point is, I didn't have very high expectations going into this game, but it scratched every same itch that the original trilogy did. Now you're racing instead of dodging enemies and running through levels. CTR Nitro Fueled is more than just a remake. Beanox added all the racetracks from CTR sequel, Crash Nitro Kart. And on top of that, they made 8 brand new tracks and added 30 new characters. So there was a lot for me to chew my teeth on and complete. It was kind of a Crash renaissance, wasn't it? The N-Sane trilogy and CTR Nitro Fueled came out in 2017 and 2019 respectively. They were the first Crash games to be critically received well in nearly 20 years. In those 20 years, there were like a billion Crash games that some people admittedly cared for, but none of them hold the widespread appeal that the original trilogy and Crash Team Racing have. People speculate. Rumors materialize. Whispers poke through the silence. You know these games aren't going to be it, right? They're just testing the waters. Brand new games coming. And you know what? It's about time. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time, is truly something special. It's a 10 out of 10 in a lot of ways. The movement is perfectly iterated upon from the N-Sane trilogy. Control is a hard thing to describe, but I think the best way to put it is that when I died, I felt like it was my fault as opposed to the game's. And I can't say that was the case for the N-Sane trilogy in a lot of places. Crash 4 feels like a perfection of what Crash Bandicoot should control like. The art style is another aspect they hit out of the park. Their art team blows me away in general, especially considering they were responsible for the bastardization of Spyro. Like, how can you redesign this cute little dude into this pug with wings? 7 years later, they gave him some much needed love with the Spyro Reignited trilogy. It still boggles my mind that the development team that changed Spyro into this beast also came up with this lovingly faithful adaptation. And they continued their great work with Crash 4. I'll be honest, I thought Crash looked kinda gross in the N-Sane trilogy. I think it's more of a lighting thing than an art style thing, but he's always seemed a bit off. And don't even get me started on Coco, she's nightmarish. Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time writes the course in my mind. I can't really begin to tell you why I prefer his design, because I don't know a lot about art or anything. But my love for the visuals goes beyond the character design. He's a lot more animated. The animators utilize squash and stretch to its full potential here. He's able to show so much more emotion compared to his N-Sane trilogy appearance, which makes him similar to his original design in the PS1 games. And you're able to see so many different emotions because they put a fair amount of effort into the story. Instead of watching a floating head talk about how they're going to kill that darned Bandicoot like in Crash 3, you have interactions with these bad guys in the levels. All the other characters are just as expressive as Crash, so there's a lot of good back and forth. Oh my god, the writing? The writing in a Crash Bandicoot game has no right being this good. It's kind of like my expectations with CTR, in that I didn't expect much from it, but it promptly taught me never to judge a book by its cover. It's one of those games which makes you wish it was a TV show, because I could definitely watch these characters bounce off each other for a couple of seasons. I've kind of been dancing around this because I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I love it. I love this game. Man, it's a lot, and I mean that wholeheartedly. There was a lot of game in Crash 4. There's 43 levels in the game, already more than any game in the original trilogy. But oh boy, do they wring a lot of content out of those levels. You know how levels in Crash 3 would have like a gem or two in them? Every non-boss level in Crash 4 has 6 gems. 3 of those are for collecting up to 80% of the Wumpa Fruit in the level, 1 for destroying all the boxes, 1 for beating the level in less than 4 deaths, and the last one for hiding a gem somewhere. Remember how I said there were 6 gems in each level? That's kind of a lie. There's actually 12 gems for each level, for getting technical. Each level in the game has an inverted version, each with the same 6 gems. These inverted levels are the same as the original level, but they're mirrored and weird visual filters applied. Of course, there's the iconic time trials. Each non-boss level can be speedrun. Each non-boss level can be speedran, where you break certain boxes to pause the timer for a few seconds. When you finish, you'll get a relic ranging from Sapphire to Gold to Platinum to Dev Times, escalating in difficulty respectively. Dev Times are just for bragging rights though, they aren't counted towards the completion score. Oh man, just listing those was exhausting. Can you imagine if— wait. What's that? Wait, huh? I forgot something? Oh, of course I did. I forgot the insanely perfect relics. And yes, they're as frustrating as the name implies. To get an insanely perfect relic for a level, you have to break every crate in a level and not die once. Not just get the under 4 deaths gem, you can't die at all. So that's fun. Alright, that's all you have to do. Pretty simple, isn't it? That's kind of a rambly bit, so let's break it down. How many times will you have to play each level? It'll of course vary based on how good you are, but I'll give you my experience. Playthrough 1. Almost every time I'd get all the Wumpa gems. It's really easy to collect enough Wumpa Fruit to hit the 80% threshold, even if I missed a fair amount of boxes. A lot of the time I'd either get the all boxes or under 4 deaths gem, but never both. Sometimes I come across the hidden gem, sometimes I miss it. Playthrough 2. Get the under 4 deaths or all boxes gem, whichever I missed from my first playthrough. I'd also grab the hidden gem if I missed it my first time around. Playthrough 3. Time trial time. These really require a perfect understanding of the controls and knowledge of cycles in the level. Playthrough 4. I move to the inverted version of the level. I only do this part after I get the Platinum Time Relic, so I'm pretty much a god at this level by this point. Playthrough 5. Often I'll miss the hidden inverted gem my first go round, so I'll grab it here. I'll also pick up the insanely perfect gem here because I've mastered the level so much up to this point. And that's assuming I do each of these attempts in one go. It's very, very likely that I'll have to attempt each of these multiple times. And in the case of the time trial relics and insanely perfect relics, it's not unheard of me to give dozens of attempts for each of them. Little tangent here, but some of the box and gem placement in this game is straight up diabolical. I like a good, well-choreographed secret. It's hard to strike a balance between making a secret path extremely obvious and impossible to notice without knowing about it beforehand. Crash 4 strikes the needle of impossibility more times than I would want from any game. Like, how was I supposed to know to shift the camera in this particular part of the stage for no reason? And when you do move the camera, it'll often be a couple hundred pixels that you barely notice. I hate feeling like I'm forced to use a guide when I play games. I like feeling like I've discovered secrets like this of my own accord. But if I were to go about finding all the boxes and gems in this game without using a guide, I'd probably waste 5 or so hours that could be completely eradicated if I looked at a guide. If you're interested in my perspective on walkthroughs and gaming, check the cards for a video I put together a while back about it. Anyway, back to my multiple playthroughs of each level. I've already done on my first playthroughs of the level because at some point I just decided that I was going to stop trying to get the all boxes and under 4 deaths gem on each level at the same time. So the game for me right now is a loop between playthroughs 2 and 5 on each level. And they aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination. It's hard for me to say, but I think on average I spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours on each level doing these attempts. At the time of writing, I'm 73% through the game and I have 19 levels left to complete, not counting the flashback levels, which admittedly don't take as long as normal levels. I'm only halfway through grinding out the main stages, And I've already put 38 hours in. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of disheartening. Spending a couple of hours in the game just to complete a few levels feels like a waste of time in retrospect. Why do I throw myself at the wall dozens of times trying to hit a certain jump perfectly so I can make an early cycle later in the level? Ugh. Why do I feel this compulsion to get everything in this game? What is this bringing me? I'm gaining nothing from this. I was planning on making this video after I got 106%, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to be able to offer some unique critique just because I grabbed 100 more gems from levels I've already played. I'm not even going to think about this game any differently once I do all that. In fact, I might even be more sour on the game after doing literally every challenge. I'm yanking at the teats of Crash 4 for every microscopic drop of content, and what's it given me? It's just made me resentful of a game I think is perfect in a lot of ways. Beyond that, why spend my time playing a game after all the meaningful content has been exercised from it? Why not play something else? Why not read a book even? Why not sit in my room and stare at the wall? Why do anything when I'm just gonna die someday? Well, that was a bit self-indulgent. I didn't even write that bit in my script to be performative or anything. Something I genuinely think about sometimes. I talked about the concept of feeling obligated to play games in my video about too many games, but it's relevant here too. Crash 4 is a game I knew I'd love from the second it was announced, which is weird because I wasn't a fan of the series before it was revealed. I had always wanted to play the original trilogy, but I always put it off for one reason or another. But when Crash 4 was announced, I knew I finally had my excuse to play the original trilogy. More than an excuse, it felt like an obligation. This is a personal thing, maybe some of you out there have this problem, but it feels weird to me to play a sequel without having played the originals. With hindsight, I can say I did enjoy my time playing those games. They were a bit janky, but because of Crash 4 I've been introduced to a series I wouldn't have played before. But now that feeling of obligation rears its ugly head again. Crash 4 is amazing. In case you hadn't noticed, my only real complaint is that there's too much of it. I think I'd rather have that than not enough content, but I think there's something to be said for in favor of developers erring on the side of making less content when working on a game. My opinion of the game is tainted because of the inverted levels. You're forced to practically play the same level again if you want to go for 106%. Luckily, you don't have to do that, you can stop whenever you want. The content is still there. They thought the inclusion of these palette swaps, if you will, would bring more to the game than if they weren't included. And I don't think that's really the case. I could go into a whole bit about less being more, but I kind of want to do a whole video on that topic in the future. Nevertheless, I'm sure some people loved going back to the levels with weird effects and filters. Good for them. I can just appreciate when a game does what it sets out to do and gets out of there. And I think Crash 4 would have been a better game if they had better stuck to that principle. I keep telling myself that I'm going to get 106% in this game. Get every clear gem, every inverted gem, every time relic, and every insanely perfect relic. I've already completed it, though. I saw the end credits. Why push for a more complete completion? I know I have it in me to do it. I could spend 30 or so hours perfecting the rest of the levels in the game. But man, should I? 30 hours is a lot of time. I could use that time to finally watch the Lord of the Rings extended editions. Twice. Some people are just really dedicated to perfecting one game. It blows my mind just how many speedrunners are out there. Speedrunning, at least at the higher level, requires you to dedicate a lot of your time to one game, often at the expense of other media. I prefer to play a lot of games that I like than play one game I love multiple times. I can't imagine having over 1,000 or 2 hours in Super Mario 64. Playing the same thing over and over until your mind and body are in sync perfectly to execute the strats you've watched and practiced for the last 5 years just isn't something that vibes with me. I'm nowhere close to that point with Crash 4. I've only put in like 40 hours, but I'm getting hints of it. I can see myself slipping into that mindset where I get upset at every little misstep I make in a level. The game really does require you to have that critical mind. When you're doing time trials, you really need to think about the route you take. You need to analyze your run and figure out why you're 20 seconds behind the Platinum Relic. And then you get the Platinum Relic and you find out you're 15 seconds behind the Dev Relic? How's it even possible to save 15 plus seconds off what I just did? It's draining. That's a good way to describe 106%ing this game. Draining. Before I close out this video, I want to be very clear. Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time is a game I didn't even think was possible. I never had faith in Activision to get somebody who cares working on an IP that had been dead for a while. But they've been putting Toys for Bob, Vicarious Visions, and Beanox to work recently. and they've all done amazing work. Vicarious Visions on the Crash N-Sane trilogy and Tony Hawk remake, Beanox on Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and Toys for Bob, the stars of the show, on the Spyro Reignited trilogy and Crash 4. Every single one of those games is a slam dunk. I never thought I'd be saying this, but I appreciate what Activision has done here. They let Toys for Bob make a beautiful love letter to the fans, unconstrained by stingy microtransactions or rotten pre-order bonuses. If you're a fan of platforming at all, I can wholeheartedly recommend Crash 4. It contains everything you'd want in an exceptional platformer. Just know what you're getting into if you want to complete Crash 4. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really trying to find my own niche on this website, and I pushed myself with the script here. It's fucking hard to find something that hasn't already been done. You have so many great people out there combining both intellect and humor into their writing. It's hard to compete. I don't think I'm nearly at the point of any of them, but everyone's got to start somewhere. I know this video is going to get like 24 views in the first week, and then get thrown into the trash never to be recommended again, but at this point, I'm just putting these out to find myself. Find something that allows me to stand out from the rest. Hopefully I can before I lose steam, because putting a bunch of videos out to no public reception kind of takes the wind out of me. Again, thanks for watching. Hope I earned a sub from you, and I'll see you on the flip.